First off, let me say, sometimes life events get in the way of fun things. That's what happened. Past couple months, this truck has been put on the back burner because of many things going on in my personal life. All good things, but you know, sometimes you just can't have all the fun. I am happy to say that we are now back at it. We are working on the truck again. Got a lot done in the past couple of days. So last time we left, last video, was this truck being stripped, everything in the back, and going down to the pressure washer. I have a really cool pressure washer at work. It actually shoots boiling water, so it cut through all the grease, all the oil, and knocked off all the dirt. We did the entire frame, the entire underneath of the cab. Once we got it back here, I started working on the suspension. I put in the Procomp lift springs, and I don't know if any of you have worked on old Toyotas, but these bolts, these spring bolts, they go through the bushing in the leaf spring. They were an absolute pain to get out of the back. The front ones knocked right out, but the back ones were a freaking pain. But they all came apart and put the new springs in. The back of the truck sits a little bit higher than the front, which is what I want, but we also got to factor in that the front is going to settle a lot more due to the engine. And it's also a heavier engine than these springs were designed to carry by, 150 pounds or so. So it's going to be a little bit lower in the front. So what I think I'm going to end up doing is taking out a spring out of the pack, take out this small one and see where it sits. I got the front springs in. So we got these front springs in. They bolted in nice. And these pins for the leaf spring, they came out real easy on both sides, but I ended up just getting 4 new ones just in case. We do have a longer drag link, which I'm not going to put in yet because we're actually going to convert this manual steering box to a power steering box. So I'm going to wait until I get that before I put the drag link on. Then I'll get some video of this. We test fit the engine. I apologize I don't have any footage of it, but we took it in and out 3 or 4 times. So you can see this is where the stock engine mount was. Here's the other side. Cut them out because obviously we're going to be making new ones, and this is all going to be cleaned up and ground down. In addition to the motor mounts, we also had an interference fit with the torque rod. So welded to the frame right there. We had to cut that out because the front of the engine is kind of wide because the oil cooler on this side. So we couldn't get it down low enough without this torque rod out of the way. But the stock one is not going to work regardless. I could have used the mount if it worked, but the stock rod is going to, it's going to be at the wrong angle. So basically the way the torque rod works in these Toyotas is that you have the drag link. You have the drag link that goes from the power steering box down to the knuckle here, right? And that's going to be at a certain angle, and that has changed now because of the lift. Procomp made a new drag link that's going to compensate for the lift, so it adds this height in here in the middle. Now basically what I'm planning on doing is using the same design to make a new torque rod. So we're going to make an S torque rod that comes up, and what I'm going to end up doing is mounting it up here. I don't think a longer one will hurt, as long as it's the same angle as the drag link. We shouldn't get any bump steer or anything like that. Some people with dedicated off-road trucks will just run them without it. This thing is going to see a lot of road use, and we don't want bad driving characteristics, so we're going to make that work as it should. To get the engine in and out, I knew I was going to have to do it, but it still hurt me to cut. I had to cut the top of this radiator support out just so we could slide the engine in and out easy. But no big deal. We'll weld it back up when the time comes. In addition to all that, this is the Toyota R150F transmission bell housing. Now, bolted on is the quick draw adapter bell housing that goes from the 2.8 to the R150F, which is basically the same transmission as a AX15 for a Jeep. We're still going to have this transmission rebuilt, but for now it's just bolted together for mock-up purposes. We're going to make sure we don't have any clearances, and I kind of want to see where the shifter ends up. Because this transmission is a few inches longer than the stock 4-speed, but I don't know if you can tell, the depth on this bell housing, the stock bell housing, is actually bigger than this one, so it actually brings it forward now a few inches, so it might end up landing close to where we need it. I know I'm going to have to modify the floor no matter what. It's expected. It's no big deal. I still need to get the adapter plate to bolt this stock gear-driven transfer case onto the newer transmission, so that's going to add another 2 inches or so. So that's going to kick this shifter back a little bit further. It's no big deal. As long as it doesn't interfere with the seat, we should be alright. So there's the stock hole for the transmission and transfer case shifters. And if we got to move them back, we got to move them back. We're just gonna have to wait and see what it all looks like. And I want to use that transfer case I think I explained before, because it's actually gear driven. It's stronger than the chain drive. Got more options for low range if you wanted to swap the gear sets in it, and also the speedometer cable is going to screw right into it, so we're not going to have to mess with that, converting an electronic transfer case into a mechanical, or do a GPS speedometer, or change the gauge cluster. We want this truck to appear as stock as possible and for everything to work as it should, but have a really, really cool drivetrain. This will be the first time we test fit the engine with the transmission into the truck. So we bolted up the adapter plate to the transmission and the transmission to the engine, and now we'll try to throw it in. The engine's in place for the most part, and it fits in here, surprisingly. It looks like we have enough room for a radiator and electric fan on this side, and we're going to do an intercooler right behind the grill in front of the radiator. Got more room on this side, the passenger side, because of the passenger side axle. We're kind of hugging the driver's side. That's the way the stock Toyota engine was when it was in there. The closest thing on this side to hitting the frame rail is the starter, which you can't see from up here. Underneath. Underneath we got clearance for the oil pan. You can see the starter right there. Got about a 1/2 inch clearance or so right now. And this is underneath. On the back side, you can see the clearance there. And on the passenger side, plenty of room. This is where the transmission's going to end up, pretty close. And inside, the transmission shifter is going to poke up basically where the transfer case shifter was. So I am going to have to move the shifters back, which won't be a big deal. But it fits surprisingly well. We don't have to do any floor modifications right now as far as the firewall goes and getting the transmission tunnel and everything. That adapter plate fits in here. And the engine fits better than I expected it would, which is very good. So now we're going to grind the rest of the old mounts off, clean up the frame good, and then we're going to start building motor mounts.